Hey guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week, my mechanic and I are working on the Mustang. We're gonna get this thing back on the road finally after a year of sitting here, more or less inoperable because the transmission wouldn't shift. I'd recommend you go back and watch my last Mustang video. It gave you kind of an update on why it hasn't been driven and kind of where the car's gonna go. But anyway, the long and short of it is here we are today. The transmission is now open, it's drained, and we are diving into figuring out why this thing wouldn't shift. So I'm gonna take the camera under the car and show you kind of what we're looking at. And then I'm gonna bring you over here to a workbench that we mocked up so that you can see what we're working on here. So hang tight. So here's the underside of the transmission. And basically what we're looking at is the transmission that we've taken the pan off of, we've taken the filter off of, and we've taken the valve body off of. And so you're gonna see there's fluid still dripping and leaking out, and that's fine. That's gonna happen. It's gonna go right into the strain pan. I'm gonna walk over behind us and you can take a look at what we're actually doing here. Let me go around. And here's our mocked up workbench here. But again, here's the valve body. And basically on the other side, we checked all the springs, everything looked good and tight and ready to go. Flipped it over, removed the back plate here. Basically to expose kind of this maze of fluid channels, right? Well, if we come over to the workbook here, you're gonna see, here's all the springs and guides and valves and all the things. But these dark dots, these are little balls, kind of marbly like balls that sit inside these channels. And as pressure builds, essentially they rise or fall to allow the flow of fluid, to allow the transmission to shift. So following our map here, there should be, I think it was 7 balls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here's the actual deal. And so if we look at the same map, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 should be here, and it is not. So you can see right inside that hole, right here, there should be a ball inside that hole, and there's not. So that, we think, is actually the problem with this transmission. It was building up the pressure, but because there was no ball there to stop the flow of fluid, the transmission wasn't shifting. So Vern left, he ran back to his shop. He's got a pack of these little balls that go inside the transmission. We're gonna put that in there and reassemble, and hopefully everything else looks good and we'll start functioning properly. So we'll check back here in a few, and hopefully you'll see me driving the car by the end of this video. Now, if it were only that easy, right? So where I left off just a minute ago was Vern was coming back with those little balls. He did come back. We're a couple days later now, still working on this project. We replaced the ball, put the valve body back inside the transmission, sealed it up, filled it with fluid, started it up. The transmission already just parked up here on the lift. I'd put it into drive or reverse, or I'd shift it in and out of gear. For 2 reasons. You want to get the fluid in there and flowing and all the things. But then secondly, just to test the shifting of each gear. And as I did, everything felt a lot more solid. So I do think that having that ball in there solved a problem. Now, I don't think that was the problem, because put the lift down, put it in drive, the car would roll, still wouldn't shift. So we went ahead and put this pressure gauge. You can kind of see this cable here. Let me go around and underneath here. All right, so we put this pressure gauge on the transmission, and at neutral, it should be, I wanna say the book said below 22 pounds of pressure, but essentially you want 0 to 5. And so it was there. It was 0 to 5, and that was fine. It was working out really well, but it still wasn't, the pressure still wasn't the correct readings when I put it into 1 or 2. And then just drive in general, it was just getting all wacky. But what we figured out, and actually I probably should have just stayed under there, but what we figured out was that the reason it wasn't shifting didn't have everything to do with the pressure like we thought. The pressure is fine, the pressure is building, it should be shifting when it can or when it will. But what we found out is the TV cable that connects the transmission to the carburetor, which is the kick down and all the things, actually was getting bound up. And what ended up happening was, because this transmission, this engine, they aren't even really for this car. I mean, they're out of a newer, an late 80s Mustang. when we ran the cable, let's see if I can get in here and get you guys a better image. So basically this is the shifting mechanism right up in here. And the way we had it was that the cable was just running straight up kind of along the exhaust here, right up there to the back part of the throttle. And what ended up happening is these levers were actually getting bound on one another. And so at first we thought, well, let's put a spring on there so it kicks back and it would allow the car to shift, because basically as I'm stepping on the throttle, this thing is moving. You can kind of hear it clicking, but it doesn't want to go back. It didn't want to go back the way it should. And really there's a lever that pulls and pushes, and we didn't think that maybe it was pulling or pushing enough. And so Vern basically put a stick on it. I had the car running and Vern was like kind of tapping it with a stick, and you could hear it, you know, the change in tone as it wanted to shift, it wanted to do all those things. I'm looking at my face over my shoulder here, so sorry about that. But anyway, the long and short of it is we needed to flip the cable around and move these levers so that they weren't binding on one another. So we took it apart, and I'm gonna come under here this time. And so here's the assembly, right? Here's all the linkage, here's the actual cable itself, and the springs and all the things that came in that kit. Well, when we installed it initially, this is years ago now, again, I said that we ran the cable forward right up to, you know, the carburetor, essentially the side of the carburetor, the throttle level there, lever on the carburetor. And it seemed really long. The cable seemed really long. And unfortunately, the kit that I bought, I wanna say I bought it from Jegs, or I bought it from, I don't know, Summit, somebody. I bought it from somebody, and it didn't come with installation instructions. So we just mounted it and went with it. And that was our problem all along. Everything I was reading, I went on a couple different forums, and everything I was reading, basically people said, adjust your TV cable, right? Adjust, make it, maybe it's too tight, maybe it's too loose, but either way, you're gonna burn up the transmission if you don't fix it. And obviously, that's my concern, is I don't wanna burn up the transmission. It is a brand new transmission. It has like 5 miles on it. And that's the last thing I wanna do is destroy it. So I went online. I found the original installation instructions on the Locar website. Locar is the company that this kit, it's an AOD kit designed for a 60s Mustang that has a 5.0, you know, conversion, if you will, the 302 out of a Cobra Mustang of the 80s or 90s. And the installation instructions show, in fact, I might have them right here. Yeah, I do. It shows, well, you can kind of see here, if I can hold this and show you at the same time. Let's see here. It shows, this is the linkage arm that I was clicking before. These were getting bound on one another the way we had it before. But essentially, we had to flip this one down, okay? And then route the cable around and up to the transmission, or up to the linkage up above. Now, the problem with that was that when we installed it, we had the cable running forward. There was tons of slack. So we ended up cutting the cable shorter so that it would fit. Well, because we cut it and now we needed to run the long way, it wasn't long enough. So we went around town everywhere we could that may or may not carry it to see if they had one of these in stock. And even a generic cable for this thing, nobody had one in stock. So I had to order one. And actually that's what I've got right here, is a brand new Locar kit. So this is the same kickdown kit that I already have, but what it's going to include is the longer wire, or the cable. So everything is gonna be assembled correctly moving forward. And we're crossing our fingers, we're gonna get that installed here before too long, and hopefully it fixes the issue. You know, so once the correct cable, or the cables run correctly, then it's all adjustments up top. And hopefully there, you know, again, there's a million guides online as to how to basically adjust that throttle cable and that kickdown cable. You know, it's not rocket science, but if it's not done correctly, it can really damage that transmission. So I've learned a ton here, which I didn't know I needed to learn. But you know what, it's good knowledge to have. And moving forward, this is definitely something that is relevant, because I may have another Mustang someday. I may need to tweak with this one again someday, and understanding how these TV cables work and how to adjust them appropriately, it's kind of a big deal. So we're gonna go ahead and adjust it. We're gonna get this new kit set up and on there, and then I'm gonna report back. Here we are nearly a month later than what you just saw, but the car is back together. It is running, it is driving, it is shifting. It is a success. So if you remember, we just talked about how that cable, the TV cable, is supposed to loop back towards the rear of the car before it comes back up to the top, where it links to the throttle linkage on the carburetor there. I'm gonna bring you in here so you can kind of see what we're looking at. But there it is. And so basically, this cable that's back there, that braided stainless line, comes up, connects here. Here's the, I don't know what you want to call it, the wire, if you will. But I need to trim this back. This is where we made a mistake last time. Oh, I'm not very good at cameraing here. But I need to cut this back. I hadn't yet because we wanted to get it all fine-tuned. But anyway, the long and short of it is correctly run, it is correctly installed, it has been correctly tuned. So the car does shift at the appropriate RPM, it does shift into the appropriate gear, it drives as it should. So what we did was put it on the road. I drove around the neighborhood. Yeah, it shifted flawlessly. It was fantastic. Vern says, Josh, go get on the highway. We need to put this thing at highway speeds to make sure that it downshifts okay. You know, not just upshifts, but down. And I wasn't prepared for that. So I'm gonna share a little bit here. So what I did was, we didn't go out to the highway. There's a couple of open roads not far from my house that are close enough that should worst case scenario happen, I can like walk home. But we go out to this road, it's a long straight stretch, and I just start accelerating. And it shifts perfectly, yada, yada, yada. I get up to about 40 miles an hour. And all of a sudden the car starts to just kind of weave back and forth, you know, like on the road. To a point where it's frightening. Again, open top car. I have a roll bar that, you know, quite frankly, I don't think would support the weight of the car if there was really a true rollover. So I'm like white knuckling it at this point. I'm gripping the steering wheel. I tell Vern, like, this thing's all over the road, I'm gonna slow down. So as I start to slow down, it starts to weave left and right a little bit harder. I'm probably like dripping sweat at this point. It was the scariest mile and a half or so of my life. I wasn't even going that fast. Like I said, I think maybe 40 or 45. But it was just so frightening. The car wanted to just wander all off the road. So we come to a nearly complete stop. I go a couple hundred yards, pull off into a sub-development that's pretty new. I mean, there's not a lot going on there, but was able to kind of just putt my way back home at normal speeds. When I was trying to accelerate from 0 to say 60, it was frightening. It was incredibly frightening. What that told me is that I needed an immediate alignment. And so what I did was, as soon as I got back, you know, Vern had to get off to the rest of his day. So he did. He went and, you know, left the house. I immediately called the local tire company, tire shop, who does alignments, and asked them if they could get me in. Now, there's a big car show coming up here real soon. And so my goal was to get the car in a position where I could drive it safely and comfortably down to the car show. And we're doing it. We're doing it. They were able to get the car in same day, get it aligned. They did tell me that the steering pump is bad. There's a lot of play in there, which is part of the reason that the car wanted to wander all over the road. The tires were actually towed in a little bit and the camber was not correct. So, I mean, there was like 3 or 4 things all causing me to wander the road. The steering pump, I have manual steering in this thing. Now I do have a power steering pump that came off that Fox Body 302 that I had this car, or that the engine came out of, but I don't have any of the other components. And so now is kind of when I could, maybe even should go to power steering, but I don't know that I'm gonna do it. Unless I can get some serious convincing down in the comments. I'm likely to just replace what I have with something new. You know, they have the stabilizer. If I get under there, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to show you guys very comfortably, but let's see. Down under here, you can't really see it. It's back there a ways. But you're going to see that steering box and then the stabilizer. And so I'm going to go ahead and order new ones from Jags. I probably need new hydraulic lines as well. So I'm going to probably order that too, see if they have a complete kit. But I'm going to go ahead and order that and get that in. That's going to allow me an opportunity to really put this car out on the highway and actually drive it from A to B reliably and consistently. Right now, I can kind of putt through town. I can get up to 30 miles an hour without wandering the road. I did that on the way home after my alignment, and it was great. Such an amazing feeling having the car finally drivable and reliable. It's amazing. It's been a lot of years coming. I'm so thrilled to finally be there. Next is, after that, getting my hardtop painted. So the car is going to go back over to my painting friend, Jeff. He has the top. He's already molded on and fitted the side scoops on that roof. He just needs the car to final fit and adjust and then mark all the stripes and get it painted. So he needs the car to do that. So after the car show that's coming up, I'll probably schedule time with Jeff and take the car out to him. So I hope this update was good. It was long, and I'm sorry. It's been maybe a 6-week endeavor to get this situation figured out with the transmission. But, and really, quite frankly, it's been a lot longer than that. I've had the transmission been in the car for a year, maybe more. You guys can go back in time and look at the videos, but it's finally fixed. It's working the way it should. It is shifting. It's exciting to me. Yeah, it's just been a long time coming. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this journey. There's more to come. Obviously, this car is going to be a work in progress for a long time. There's a lot to do. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and pull it outside, get it detailed, get it cleaned up for this car show, and I'll see you next time. In the meantime, remember, may every investment you make be a good one.